think we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and start um, to make sure that we stay on time. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. We are excited to have you. Um, This is a webinar often hosted and supported by the ADDRE, which is the Associate Deans and Directors of Research under the SNRS, and we're so grateful for all the support that we receive from SNRS to sponsor these events and coordinate. Today, as part of our webinar series, we are so grateful to have Dr. Damaris Javier to talk to us on present on responsive mentorship in higher education. As usual, we'll proceed with a brief introduction of Dr. Javier, and then she does her presentation. We have a brief Q&A, and at the end of that, all the members of the RIG stayed behind for 15 minutes for just minor businesses. Without further ado, I am so pleased to welcome Dr. Damaris Javier. Dr. Javier has over 20 years of experience advancing workforce development across higher education, STEM health professionals, and biomedical and behavioral health research. Her expertise includes cultural responsive mentorship, career and curriculum development, partnership building, and national workforce training initiatives. Dr. Javier is Associate Director of Research Training Programs at the Institute of Health Disparities at the University of North Texas Health Science Center. She serves as a principal investigator on an NIH R13 grant focused on broadening participation in biomedical research workforce and as a multi-PI on NIH R25 grants to develop and disseminate national training courses to strengthen recruitment, persistence, and success in biomedical research career. She's also a co-investigator with the National Institute of Health funded a National Research Mentoring Network Resource Center in Norman and the Aim Ahead initiative, where she has co-directed two national programs, Aim Ahead Chair and Aim Ahead AI Ready, Advancing AI ML Capacity, Health Equity, and Research Diversity. A trained entering, mentoring, and entering research facilitator, Dr. Javier is committed to strengthening mentoring relationships and research training environments. Previously, she served as Director of Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. With that, Dr. Javier, take it over.
Just want to confirm, do you all see my screen? Can I get confirmation? Thank you, and thank
Yes.
you, Dr. Naka, for that warm introduction, as well as thank you everyone for welcoming me into this meeting to talk about mentorship in January. So January is mentorship month, so that is an honor. Again, my name is Damaris Javier. And before getting started, I would like to mention my positionality. With that, I say that I am not a nurse, but I am a social scientist and higher education and student affairs practitioner and researcher who is deeply passionate about supporting individuals in nursing and in health professions and STEM and biomedical and behavioral research. So it is an honor to be here today. And so today, I will get started with just some quick introductions, but then I will provide an overview of effective mentorship, provide some mentorship practices for mentors, leaders, training programs, delve into some mentorship resources, and then questions or discussion. So just quickly, in 1 to 2 minutes, I would welcome the opportunity if you could take a moment in the chat to write your name, your current role, and just one word that describes a mentorship experience. And I will start verbally while you all add that in the chat. And so again, I'm Damaris Javier. I am at UNT Health Fort Worth in Texas as an Associate Director of Research Training Programs and hold other roles. And one word that describes mentorship experience to me is empowerment. Okay, rewarding, transformative, all these words. Breadth of experience with mentorship, about 20 years. Advocacy, inspiring, polarized. Oh, the first I heard that one. Fulfilling, collaborative, soul crushing. Oh, need to reflect on that one. Fulfilling, empowering, inspiring, fulfilling. Ah, inspiring again. Anchoring, polarize. Very good and very bad. Yeah, we'll delve into that one a little bit here. But these are all words that do capture mentorship experiences. So thank you for taking a moment to share who you are, but also kind of that word that describes that experience for you. So I'll get started with effective mentorship and some basic or more kind of background information on mentorship. And so to get started, I want to share a shared definition so that we could have a shared understanding of mentorship. So the academies, the National Academies of Sciences, define mentorship as a professional working alliance in which individuals work together over time to support the personal and professional growth, development, and success of the relational partners through the provision of career and psychosocial support. And I purposely highlighted some of these words, one being working alliance, because a mentorship relationship in its true form is not one-sided. It shouldn't be the mentor telling the mentee what to do. It's a shared co-learning experience and journey. I also highlighted career and psychosocial support. And so mentorship does include a career development provision, such as career guidance, if we're in the research space, research development. But it includes also psychosocial provision, which is a lot of times overlooked and not included in mentorship relationship. These are things like emotional support, role modeling, confidence building, and motivation. I'm going to delve into some historical components of mentorship. So traditionally, as we know, mentors have learned through observation and life experiences. So we have learned how to mentor through observing others or how we were mentor ourselves, and we picked on the good and the bad or what we think is good, and then we implement those tactics with our mentees. Um, a colleague I know, stated mentors have a certificate from School of Hard Knocks, right? However, mentorship is a learned skill. It is a skill that is learned, but also learning how to truly embrace your mentees or the individual's lived experiences, their identities, but also being responsive to these experiences. And yes, I love supportive and lifelong learning. The literature and the scholarship has beautifully established outcomes of effective mentorship, as you may be familiar with these. Um, it has noted that effective mentorship can foster confidence, self-efficacy building, skill development, resilience, and sense of belonging. And these are key components that lead to persistence within our spaces. The literature has also noted that it increases research productivity. An example is it has even noticed increase in publishing within this area. Effective mentorship has also been associated with higher career satisfaction as well as recruitment to graduate programs and research related career paths. However, I'm going to stop and say that in order to truly embrace these beautiful benefits of mentorship, these must be intentional, it must be responsive, and it must be effective. It is not simply having the presence of a mentor that really matters, it's having quality in those mentorship relationships that matter. So, with the comment about good and bad earlier, there are negative mentorship experiences. And scholars have defined or have mentioned that mentoring quality does not exist in a simple binary of good and bad. It actually, they note it exists within a continuum ranging from highly effective and supportive to dysfunctional and harmful relationships. And so scholars describe negative mentorship experiences as dysfunctional elements of harmful events that may occur within an otherwise positive relationship. And so this distinction matters because it highlights that even well intended mentors can cause harm if their behaviors or their conditions go unrecognized or unaddressed. And so, if we look at this bottom quadrant where there's good intention, we could have a mentor who has great intention, but they might unintentionally force difficult choices on a mentee, such as having them choose between family and work responsibilities. And these matter because they do have an impact on the mentorship. The literature has noted it results in lower satisfaction, attrition, declines in professional psychosocial well being, impacts on the physical health, and lack of belongingness within these spaces. So there have been scholars that have been delving into what makes effective mentorship and have developed attributes of high quality mentorship relationship. And Dr. Chris Fun and colleagues here delve into literature and highlight multidimensional components of or attributes of effective mentorship. And it includes components in research environments. For example, it includes components such as research development, building skills and scholarly independence, for example, interpersonal effectiveness that may include communication and trust building, psychosocial support that I mentioned earlier, so confidence, motivation, role modeling. It also includes responsive mentorship, so embracing the individual's identities, but being responsive to any biases, privileges, power dynamics that may exist in their barriers that the mentees go through. And it includes a sponsorship attribute. And so advocating for the mentee and building their opportunities. And so there are many elements of effective mentorship. I am going to highlight some core components of effective mentorship. And I'll start off with organizational values. Organizational values matter. They do influence behavior at the micro level by shaping how communities within the organization are defined and what priorities within that organization are emphasized. These values, what ends up happening is it trickles down and becomes internalized in the individual practices, including the individual's mentoring practices. Mentorship, another element of effective mentorship, establishes that mentorship is contextually embedded. And so mentorship happens within larger ecosystems of relationships, of organizations, of policies, of external environments. And so understanding this context helps us see how mentorship is influenced as well as supported at every level. It's not only about having a mentor and a mentee and pairing them in a relationship. That larger ecosystem matters and influence that individual mentorship relationship. And so having a strong ecosystem helps improve mentorship within that ecosystem. Again, quality matters, as I mentioned earlier. So, to embrace the benefits of mentorship, these need to be grounded on evidence based mentorship practices and also tools. And I'll delve into some of those in a bit. And access to mentorship and also access to mentorship networks. Not everyone has access to mentors or even to one mentor. And so expanding access to mentorship goes beyond relying on one single source of mentorship. So we need not only to provide access to individuals who might not have mentors or who may not have quality mentors, but this element also emphasizes a shared responsibility of trying to move away from having or placing the entire burden on a single mentor. And so moving towards this ecosystem or this space where we have a mentoring network. Excuse me. So with those foundations and pieces that the scholarship has brought up, I mentioned I am a higher education researcher, but I'm also a practitioner. And so what I'm going to present next are practices that mentors can consider, that leaders can consider, that can be considered for training programs. I'm going to do this through the lens of lessons learned from a conference that we hosted back in January of 2025 that I had the privilege to serve as a PI for. And this explored effective and responsive mentorship. So it was an in-person conference. We welcomed over 140 individuals nationwide across career stages, so mentors, clinicians, researchers, administrators in the conference. And we also had the opportunity to have leaders, close to 30 leaders in the space of mentorship, sharing their research and knowledge in this space. And so during 2 days, we focus on discussing mentorship, challenges within health professions, STEM, biomedical research, effective and asset-based approaches to mentorship, as well as the institutionalization of mentorship. And so I'm going to frame the following practices around key salient themes learned during that conference. And just a shameless plug here, we do have a manuscript that is under journal consideration that once published, we will I can share with you all. So I'll start off with, sorry, start off with practices for mentors. So starting off as mentors, it's important to start off by actually having a structured, written down, intentional plan. So developing a structured mentoring plan, but also going back to that definition I presented early, not only about having or developing your mentees' career development, but also making sure you have tactics and practices that are developing that psychosocial component. And so that psychosocial component enhances how our mentees view the quality of the mentorship relationship, but also increases their satisfaction and helps them feel more confident within the profession. Another salient practice for mentors that came out during the conference was creating opportunities for reflection. And so reflection is such a powerful tool for any relationship, personal, at work, but also it applies in mentorship. And navigating the mentor's role is greatly helped or facilitated by a true, honest willingness to reflect periodically and critically about our own mentoring practices. So, taking the time to reflect is critical. Another salient theme was aligning mutual expectations for mentors. This domain of effective mentorship is foundational. Uh, it is important in any relationship to set these expectations early. And I also purposely highlighted mutual because again, going to that definition of mentorship, a mentorship is a mutual relationship. So it's important to not only tell your mentees your goals, your expectations, your boundaries, but also welcome those from your mentees and have them share their expectations, their goals, and their boundaries. There are some tools that I'll share that help in setting these expectations. Ooh, sorry for that. Um, Mentorship education. And so we are privileged that there are mentorship education that has been developed using evidence-based curriculum. And I'll delve into that in a couple of slides. But as mentors, taking advantage and being empowering ourselves on how to become effective mentors through mentorship education. And I would also add here that it's also important to not only us as mentors be trained, but also train your mentees, right? This not only provides them with empowerment for them to navigate their mentorship relationship, but they are the future workforce, right? They're the future generation. They're the ones going to mentor in the future. And so going back to how we have been trained in the past, if we are training the future generation now, we are empowering them to be future mentors that are also going to uplift the future generation. Going back to that element of access as mentors, making sure that we are connecting our mentees to a broader network of professionals in the field. But also as mentors, I always say, also us as mentors having being mentees and having mentors ourselves is critical. Another element discussed for mentors was embracing the mentee's whole self. So they are individuals first. So embracing the mentees as people first, their experiences, their identities, and again, being responsive to this ensures that you are fostering a sense of belonging and that the mentees feel valued. Another component for mentors is recognizing relationship dynamics. And so being mindful that mentorship relationships are shaped by power dynamics, including differences in status, position, and access to resources and opportunities. So being aware of this, but also being responsive in your mentorship relationships helps mentees feel safe, but that they can also be empowered to ask questions and grow. And this last one has been critical for me this year, is forming a community of practice, and something that came up to in the conference, but encourage you all, even as a society, to form community of practices where you are sharing challenges in safe places, but also your practices in terms of mentorship that you are implementing with others. Next, I'm going to delve into, for those who may have training programs or any other type of pathway programs or mentoring programs. These were some salient lessons or discussions from the research from the conference that came about. So first, as mentorship programs or training programs, setting clear mentorship expectations for your mentors and mentees. And sometimes when we have programs or mentorship programs that we are leading or we are staff for, we pair the mentor again with the mentee. But again, if we go back to this larger ecosystem where mentorship happens in a broader context, um, remember, mentorship doesn't happen in isolation. And so, what you do as part of your program structure or as your institution, your policies, your procedures affect that mentorship and influence that mentorship relationship. Another element was implementing regular program reviews of participant and mentees program using validated measurement tools. And I'll share a resource that has good validated measurement tools, as well as providing mentorship education, going back to that quality evidence-based mentorship training, not only to the mentors and mentees, but also to the staff that are developing these programs. And so, for those who might be in positions of leadership or organizational levels, here are some few practical approaches for engaging in effective mentorship. Starting off with embedding mentorship into your strategic plan. And so effective mentoring must be intentional, as I mentioned earlier, but also aligned with your institution's identity, your value, your mission, and it should not be treated as a add-on. I'm going to share a brief example of a research study. So I examined in a research study, it was a qualitative research study, and I looked at a organization that identified as a tier one, an R01 research university, but also shared another identity as a Hispanic serving institution. And so here this institution has two distinct identities, one that focuses on building research capacity, funding, and another that identity that focus on serving as the students. And so one of the findings of the study that I identify is that the institutional norms, the values, the policies, and practices largely prioritize that R01 tier one identity over that serving as mission. And what ended up happening is that those organizational priorities shape how mentoring was defined, value, and practice at the individual, the faculty level. And it affected and influenced their behaviors and practices. So, valuing mentorship intentionally at an organizational level uh, uh, is important. Another area discussed is that is also critical is recognizing, valuing, and rewarding mentorship through the policies and the practices that we implement. This can include things like a faculty's workload, their tenure, how they're being promoted, and how they're being reviewed. Also, leveraging data and research to inform mentorship initiatives was another key component discussed, and critically including the voices of the mentees qualitatively and quantitatively. Um, one component, as an example, for this is that many institutions at this time still lack safe and transparent places where mentees can bring up and raise concerns about mentorship. Um, so that's an important consideration for organizations. Another component is was discussed was mentorship, again, education, and from an organizational lens, providing opportunities for mentors, mentees, and administrators and staff to leverage mentorship education, but also tools. Another component, again, going back to the element of effective mentorship, is increasing access to quality mentors. And so institutions should think about going beyond, as I mentioned earlier, that one-to-one model and embrace mentoring networks. We also delve into asset-based approaches. And so moving away from trying to fix individuals, but rather fixing systems and structures within our organization that is ready to meet the students and the individuals that join our communities, and not in emphasizing a asset-based approach where we are valuing the skills, the knowledge that students are bringing in and the capital that they already bring in. And then another final component was making information readily available and welcoming. And so access to information is a barrier within our space, and having information that is accessible and welcoming is important. So one example, I'm going to go back to the research study I had conducted. It was a case study, and so I engage in a document analysis, and I review all the publicly available documents from that institution. And one of the things that it revealed was that as in an opportunity, and this is minor, is that the faculty pages, their digital presence can be more welcoming for students, and in a way that encourages students to reach out to faculty for mentorship. And this is just one small intentional way of how we can make information more accessible and welcome. These are practice for mentees. I won't delve into these, and it is here for your reference, and also for you to share with your mentees if you like. But I do want to make one point and emphasize the importance of viewing this through the lens that this is the future generation, this is the future workforce. And so providing mentees with mentorship education is critical, but it's also important to establish systems and structures that truly intentionally support mentorship, because doesn't not only empower the mentees personally as they navigate mentorship relationship, but it creates a sustainable system for the future where we are empowering trained empowered mentees that later on will be training the next generation that comes. So with those practices in mind, I love resources. So I'm going to share a couple of resources that you or can leverage or maybe share with others. The following are resources that are from our Institute for Health Disparities here at UNT Health Fort Worth around mentorship. So this was the National Research Mentoring Network provided, and I would mention why I mentioned provided. It was a nationwide network of mentorship, networking, and professional development. And what we had here was a network of over 35,000 individuals nationwide in spaces of health professions, STEM, biomedical research. And we provided many resources, access to mentors, so we would be able to pair mentees with mentors. We provided mentorship education, networking opportunities. I say provided because the funding, it was an NIH funded program. It ended on June 30th. However, we are working on making these resources available again. So if this is of interest to you as mentors or even mentees, but also a resource that you would be interested in the future, feel free to scan the QR code or email me, and we could provide you a status with the release of our resources. We also provide mentorship education. We do provide live workshops, but also have asynchronous mentorship training that we could offer. The mentorship education live workshops, those can be virtual or in person. They are as a fruit of the program I mentioned earlier. This is on effective, we have trained facilitators who can train mentors and mentees on effective mentorship. So domains like effective communication, aligning expectations, creating your mentoring plan, etc. But we also have trainings on entering research for mentees. So this includes domains like research identity, research ethics, building confidence. So ways that other institutions, societies have leverage on this is for their own communities. So they have reached out to us, and we have provided this mentorship education to them. We also have asynchronous self-paced courses, and a certificate is awarded upon completion. These courses are for mentors and mentees, and it delves into effective mentorship. And so if this is something that is also of interest to you or your community, please feel to reach out. Our partners or institutions in society, the way they have leveraged these as well is that we have the capabilities of bringing a community, let's say this community, to take some of these courses, and then we can provide aggregate data of engagement for their community of their members who are taking those courses. Another resource I want to share for mentorship that is available is the Aim Ahead program. And so this is a nationwide network of institutions and organizations that are designed to build AI talent among researchers and clinicians to support multidisciplinary research. To improve the health of all Americans, but also building capacity and infrastructure in hospitals and in institutions that may not have this resource. And so we, for you as mentors, but also trainees, we offered a lot of resources, training programs, mentor training programs on AI and big data. We have a mentorship and networking platform that you can leverage, courses if you want to learn about AI, ML, and health. Great resource here as well. And then quickly, these are, looking at a time, other mentorship resources outside of our institute, but I felt important to share with you all. This is a mentorship, effective mentorship report that the academies put together from a committee that came together. Great information about mentorship, but also a lot of resources and tools that you can use and your mentees can use. Mentorship Compact, I mentioned it earlier, to align those mutual expectations. This link provides different compacts that you and your mentee can use. I'm giving here one example of a compact that I adapted for that Aim Ahead program, since we have a mentorship program component to Aim Ahead, so that the mentors and the trainees of those programs can set expectations and talk about what are their expectations for communication, for publications, etc. So this is just an example, but the link has other ones that you can use for your mentorship relationships or even programs. This link here, I'm providing it to provide a list of assessments with validated tools for mentorships in case you would like to or need some assessments. A great resource. And this is a mentorship map. Again, going back to that element of effective mentorship and building mentorship networks. It says faculty, but this can be adapted for your students, for for staff or anyone, right? But it provides kind of this broader network of one, where do I have mentors for? Do I have mentorship for sponsorship? Do I have mentorship that serves as cheerleaders or role models for me? But where am I lacking and what other mentors I need to work on getting? Here, and these slides will be shared with you. These are mentorship organizations, in case you're interested in viewing these for reference. And then as I conclude, I want to invite you to a mentorship challenge. I mentioned earlier that it is January, it is mentorship month. So I encourage you, if you like, to take on one of these challenges. You could do one, two, three, or all four. Pick one to celebrate mentorship month. Maybe recognize a mentor, recognize a mentee, reflect on maybe an area you would like to enhance to become more effective, or pay it forward. And so if you like, you can take this slide, post it on social, have other mentors and trainees participate. But I encourage you all to celebrate Mentorship Month by taking time to do one of these at least. So with that, thank you so much for this opportunity. And now I open it up for any questions or any comments or any practices that you would like to share with the community here.
Thank you, Dr. Javier. What a insightful, engaging presentation. We enjoyed listening to you. So with that said, we open it up for 3 minutes for questions. I'll be monitoring the chat as well, but you can unmute yourself and ask questions if you want.
Yes. Yes, I'll provide the PowerPoint presentation as well as the resources for you all to have.
Good
Thank you.
morning. Um, I have a question. Can you expand? I'm not sure if I missed this already, so my apologies if you did. Can you expand on the work that is being done at your institution? I know you mentioned it briefly and you put up a QR code.
Yeah, so we have various mentorship initiatives that we are that have available to you all. One of them, and I think this is the one that you have mentioned, it is a program that offers mentorship, networking, and professional development virtually across career stages. So this was for undergraduate students, graduates, early career faculty, senior faculty, researchers, and administrators. And so this was a free resource that was available. It was funded by NIH, and across health professions, STEM, biomedical research. And so right now, the funding ended on June 30th, but we are working to soon release these resources to you and to nationwide. And so if you would like to receive more information and regarding the status, as well as more information about the resources, feel free to scan the QR code or email me directly. I put my email on the chat. Cassandra, was that the resource you were referring to?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. And we also have mentorship education that we provide. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, as well as the Aim Ahead program that has mentorship resources, training programs, funding opportunities, as well as a mentorship and networking platform. So feel free to reach out to me if you want more information.
Dr. Javier, I know we're running out of time. I just have one question. I would just speak to if you can just give a little bit of an insight for, let's say, mentees. They could be postgraduate students who are being mentored or early career who are being mentored that are in a mentorship that is not responsive or like someone has pointed earlier, that could be, difficult or in a bad direction. How should they approach knowing often the difficult landscape of academia? You're muted.
Dr. Naka, can you rephrase your question?
How should individuals in a mentorship ecosystem that is not functional for them, how should they navigate it so that oftentimes you don't really have a choice if you're a student or if you are in a certain stage, how should individual navigate situation where the mentorship is not being effective for them?
I think it's a shared responsibility. It's a deep question, but it is a shared responsibility. Uh, and it requires kind of a multifaceted, in my view, approach, right? So, starting with the systems and the structures in place, what are the places that your institution, your organization, your society has to bring up these concerns or any mentorship grievances? Are they even aware of where they could go if they have a grievance? How are having mechanisms in place where trainees feel empowered to even bring those up, either in a relationship, within the relationship, and directly with the mentor, but also having mechanism in place to bring that in safe spaces, from an organizational, institution, or programmatic lens. And this is where also mentorship education for the mentees is so important, right? I am so privileged and blessed. So I consider myself a dual role, mentor and a mentee. And I am so blessed to know about mentorship. And when I am in those negative mentorship relationship, because I am privileged, I could spot it, right? And so it's important to also empower the mentees, whether it's from a structural lens or within the relationship, to be knowledgeable of how they navigate those situations, but also identify it when it's happening to them. So those are just
Thank you.
some few words towards that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we ran out of time. One last question. Can you please speak to how accountability can be held in mentorship communities versus one-on-one relationship?
Cassandra, would you be able to rephrase your question or expand on your question?
So accountability for either the mentee and the mentor, right? When it's one-on-one, you can more so say, okay, I was supposed to do this, I didn't do this, or we can speak to follow-ups and goals and um, steps that we have to achieve. But when there is a community mentorship, how do we continue with that responsibility and accountability for um, meetings and goal setting and things like that so that it doesn't fall, to the clouds, for lack of a better word, so I thought somebody else was doing it and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that also goes into talks a little bit about setting expectations and goals, mutual expectations and goals within that relationship. And so setting those early together, but revisiting it periodically is important, right? And so within this mentorship, let's say you're the mentor, right? These are the things that we both want to cover, discussing those. Um, is this mentorship relationship focused on knowledge development, or is it focused on sponsorship, or both? And who do you have in your mentorship relationship that is providing those other components? That way, those accountabilities are set early in terms of expectation. It is difficult, and I acknowledge your question to control, right? If you have a student in an institution and they have multiple networks, it's hard to create accountability if they have mentors that are outside of the institution, right? But empowering them to communicate any challenges they have, but also uplifting mentors outside of the institution. This is where mentorship education is so important and where those expectations and alignment play a role.
Thank you, Dr. Javier. And I think that would be the end of the questions. And Dr. Javier provided her email. Please feel free to reach out to her. She would share this PowerPoint with us. We would deliver that to SNRS. Casey will share it with everyone registered for this call. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you at the conference in February. And all the members of the RIG ADDR, if you can just wait behind for a few 5 minutes announcements. Thanks, Dr. Javier.